What's up, everybody? Welcome to Daily Betslip on a Wednesday. It's a great day. Got a lot of MLB action to dive into today. We're going to talk some second-year quarterbacks as well, which should be a fun segment. I got my guy Ben Heisler with me today. Ben, how are we doing on this fine Wednesday?
I've always wanted to say this to you. Hello, Peter. What's happening? I just all of a sudden it came to me. I was like, I have this perfect moment. You're getting introduced, and I get to pull a movie reference from about 17 something years ago. So good to see you, man, and excited to have a fun conversation about what's going on in the league tonight. Plenty of baseball action, obviously, and I think you and I, especially when it comes to our debate on some of these second-year quarterbacks, which is coming up in about 15, 20 minutes in the show, we're kind of on different wavelengths here. So I'm excited to do a little buy, sell, and hold with you and see how much we truly differentiate on some of these guys, especially in that crucial second year in the league.
Yeah, I'm excited for that as well. I have some thoughts. One of the picks you took, I wanted to take, so hopefully we'll have a little bit of a agreement on that side. We also have game of the night coming up later in the show. It's Twins Dodgers tonight, little late game. Sonny Gray on the bump for the Twins. Should be a fun one, I think. I know the Dodgers have been rolling lately, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in about 35 minutes here. So Ben, first off, as we always start the show, we started with our bad beat. I know there was a terrible, terrible one in the Rangers-Astros game last night. Can you walk us through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I initially, I feel like I have to set this up by saying that Martin Perez was on the bump for the Texas Rangers. And as our guy Joe Summers pointed out in his betting preview, and I believe also his MLB parlay pick from Tuesday, Martin Perez had gone 10-0 in all of his road starts for the Texas Rangers so far this season. Move fast forward to yesterday night. The Texas Rangers are up 4-0 against the Houston Astros. 4-0 in the top of the fourth. They are up 5-4 in the top of the fifth. And mind you, if you took the Rangers on the money line in the first 5 innings, you had them at plus 125. So plus value with a pitcher who had never lost on the road. Well, he gave it up. And after having a 4-run lead, Peter, and ended up being 6-5 in favor of Houston after 5 innings, the Rangers bet out the window. Rangers lose the game. And just, especially when you only have a couple innings to go, you have a guy that's been rock solid all year, especially on the road. To see it evaporate just like that, absolutely devastating, especially if you were on the Texas Rangers side and it happens against another team from the state of Texas.
Yeah, that's brutal. And two, for the Rangers, I mean, they're pretty much, I wouldn't say they're completely out of the playoff race. Like they have a long, long ways to go. They'd have to have a crazy last couple months. But like it's games like those where you start looking back on your season and like you're kicking yourself 4-0 against the best team in the division early on, and you blow that. And Martin Perez, to his credit, has been fantastic this year. After the last couple of years, it looked like he should not even be in Major League Baseball. So
Right.
credit to him for coming back. I think he was an all-star this year. So, but yeah, that's a tough one to lose. I think at 4-0, I would have been feeling real good, and that's just to lose that 6-5 is so tough.
Yeah, I probably would have been counting that cash bet from the very beginning, which is, Cardinal rule number 1. You have to wait it out, and it always could get interesting. But with his history this year, and it's been a nice turnaround. In fact, one of the pitchers for the Rangers, he's not the only one that's had a lot more success on the road. Glenn Otto, who's pitching tonight, has been a far superior road pitcher this year than compared to at home. It used to be when you pitched at home for the Rangers, Peter, that was a bandbox, especially with the weather coming into the ballpark. It's a closed dome now. It's become more of a pitcher's park, yet for whatever reason, these guys tend to pitch a little bit better on the road. It's a bit bizarre considering the circumstances as of late.
Yeah, definitely really weird. And like you said, Glenn Otto, he's got over a 5 ERA this year, but he's got a 4.02 ERA at home. So I'll be talking about that game actually coming up in a little bit in our best bets. So let's transition to best bets. Ben, I know you got 2 plays in Major League Baseball, 1 in the WNBA. If you want to start us off with the WNBA pick,
yeah,
that would be
absolutely.
great because I'm intrigued.
Okay, so good day, by the way, for all of us in our WNBA picks. Both you, myself, and Donovan went 3-0 last night. So hoping that it continues again on the 2-game slate. And for me, I got this one a little bit early. I got it at plus 5.5. It's since moved down to plus 4, but I still think it's a reasonable line. And that's the New York Liberty going on the road against the hottest team in the WNBA in the Dallas Wings tonight. I think the Liberty in this case, despite the fact that they've had some struggles, despite the fact that the Wings have been the better team, winners of 5 straight games, they're playing without Arike Ogunbowale, who is missing both the remainder of the regular season and the first round of the playoffs with basically like a muscle tear in her abdomen. But they clinched the 6th seed. And honestly, Peter, like they can only move down. They can't really move up. And if they do move down, they would need several other teams to lose along the way. And after finally making that charge to clinch that 6th playoff spot, this doesn't seem like this is going to be a team, even in their home finale, that's going to be fully ready to go against the Liberty team that's kind of been scrappy all year. As a road underdog, they've actually been a couple games over 500 this year, 12-10-1 against the spread as an underdog this year. Sabrina Ionescu has been unbelievable for a bad team. She's the first player in WNBA history to have 500 points, 200 rebounds, and 200 assists in a single year. I don't think she's going to win MVP, Peter, but I also think she's in contention for MVP. And so there's a little bit more incentive for the Liberty to play hard, for Sabrina to get minutes. And conversely, if you're Dallas, because all the circumstances around them basically are keeping them in the 6th spot, I think it's advantageous for them to try and get healthy, knowing that they're probably going to be taking on a team like Connecticut in the first round. That's a tough matchup, and you're going to make sure that everybody is healthy, rested, and ready to go. So 5.5 just feels like too many points. If everybody was playing for Dallas and they were still trying to get themselves into the playoffs, it's a different story. But in this case, I think the Liberty can sneak away with a cover here at plus 5.5, and I'll bet it all the way down to 4.
I like that pick quite a bit. The Liberty have been one of the teams I've been backing a lot in our WNBA picks, just because you look at their schedule and they had the brutal start to the year, and then they had that stretch in the middle of the year where they played like the Aces, the Mystics, the Sun, and the Sky in like 6 consecutive games. Like it was just horrible. They lost either 5 of 6 or all 6 of them. But you look at when they play the rest of the league, they've played very well this year, all things considered. So I don't mind that at all. I feel like that's a lot of points, especially with the Ogunbowale. She's one of the best players in the league. So I think that's a pretty solid. I'm glad you got it at 5.5, because that's something to have it get all the way down to 4 already.
Yeah, no, jumped on it early. It was one of the first write-ups that we had this morning. And hopefully if you got a chance to check it out early, you're able to get it on 5.5 as well. But even though it's sitting at 4, I still think it's a reasonable number. Anything less, it's probably a stay away, but I think 4 is reasonable here.
Yeah, no, I agree. We got 5 picks in the MLB, 3 from myself, 2 from Ben. I'm going to start us with my first one because he's relating to the sign behind me. Sandy is dandy, Sandy Alcantara. The favorite to win the National League Cy Young. I have him tonight going up against the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm taking him under 2.5 earned runs allowed. It's minus 145, so you got to lay a little bit of juice with this. But a lot of the times with Alcantara on the mound, you're going to see this prop at 1.5. So the fact that you can get it at 2.5, I think, is a huge value. You just look at what he's done this season. Over his last 6 starts, he has a 1.67 ERA. He's allowed more than 2 earned runs in only 3 of his 22 starts this year. The crazy thing about that is 2 of those times he's allowed more than 3 earned runs in a start came against the New York Mets. So against every other team in baseball, 19 out of 20 times he's under 3 earned runs. He's faced this Phillies team 3 times this season. He went 6 1/3, 2 runs, 7 2/3, 2 runs, and 8 innings, 2 runs in those starts. I know the Phillies have been red hot. They've been one of the better teams in baseball since the trade deadline. But at the same time, this is the best pitcher probably in all of baseball this season, maybe other than Justin Verlander. I'm not going to overthink this thing. Sandy Alcantara, it's 19 out of 22 times this thing is hit. I'm going to take it at minus 145. I think it's worth it for sure.
I think it's worth it too. Keep in mind that some of the major numbers over the past week for the Phillies, because you're right, their offenses look terrific. They've also had 4 games against the Washington Nationals. Rhys Hoskins hit a home run in every single one of those games. Part of the reason that coming up in this series, I took him to hit a home run in the Daily Dinger last night. I ended up with a double. But you think that some of that momentum is likely to continue. It's going to come to a halting stop against Alcantara. He's so remarkably consistent. Looking at the other pitchers on the slate, Peter, 158.1 innings pitched this year. The guy with the second most number of innings pitched is Justin Verlander, and it's 28.1 innings less. And those, you're talking about the 2 top candidates for National League and American League Cy Young. there's been flat out dominance from Alcantara this year, and you're right. It'd be absolutely stunning if he's not able to continue it tonight.
I think the thing with Sandy too in this spot is I like the Marlins tonight a little bit. I was debating about betting on them, but their offense has been putrid for like over a month at this point. I know they have a bunch of guys on the IL. Obviously, Jazz Chisholm, probably their best offensive player. He's out possibly for the season. So I just couldn't like bring myself to bet on the Marlins. I felt if I'm going to bet on anybody, I'm going to bet on Sandy. I'm not going to bet on the Marlins to win the first 5. I'm not going to bet on them to win the game. I'm just going to strictly worry about what he can control. And I think 2.5 earned runs. I think he easily hits the under on this.
Yeah, especially being able to find it at the 2.5 number makes a ton of sense. I'll see you a Florida team, Peter, and I'll raise you to another Florida team. That's Jeffrey Springs of the Tampa Bay Rays going up tonight on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers. I love his over on strikeouts tonight at 5.5. It's kind of crazy to think that this is a number that has gone up and up and up at several sports books. Now seeing it at 5.5. Initially was at plus odds, is now at minus odds across several sports books. But this is a really good matchup for Springs because he does well on both sides of the plate. Like against lefties, he's been good. Against righty, he's actually been even better. And there's not a lot of left-handed pitchers that can say that. So against left-handers, Springs only strikes out 20.9% of hitters. Batting average against is 253. But when he faces right-handed hitters, the strikeout numbers jump all the way up to just under 28%, and the batting average against is 226. And Milwaukee, despite being right-handed dominant, they strike out the 4th most number of times against left-handed pitchers. They trail teams like Miami, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. And Baltimore is really the only one of those teams that's been consistently good all year. So Springs at 5.5. He's hit that number, I believe, in 3 of his last 5 starts. And it's also an advantageous matchup against a Brewers lineup that, despite being right-handed dominant, works in Springs' favor. So I was able to get this at plus 100. It's probably gone down a little bit depending on where you look. But 5.5, Peter, I think it's a really good number for a very good matchup tonight.
Yeah, actually, Ben, we had an afternoon game here in that one. So you already cashed this one. Jeffrey Springs already had. We got a comment in the chat here. Yeah, he had 8 strikeouts today. So I do love the play.
I promise you, like, first of all, that's an enormous brain fart on my part. I promise I wrote this article several hours before the game took place. But all right, we'll take that over 8. I feel like not a great look for your guy, but I promise this came out on the earlier side for today.
You can check out the article over at BetSided, Ben's preview for this game.
We'll share it in the chat for anybody on YouTube. Yikes.
Yeah. And our best MLB prop bets have it right in front of me. So yeah, anybody wants to check that out. The Sandy play is also in there. And then our guy Donovan Smoot had a play on Taijuan Walker from earlier today as well. So let's keep going with the player props because I got another one here.
Okay, and I promise all these games are taking place later tonight. we can establish that. I'm not going to give out picks from yesterday or anything like that. So yeah, let's keep this going, Peter. Let's write the shit.
Yeah, so I got one in the Rockies Cardinals game tonight. Looking at Jose Quintana, the starter for the Cardinals, I'm taking him over 3.5 strikeouts. In this one, and Quintana just got traded from Pittsburgh to St. Louis at the deadline, made 1 start against your Chicago Cubs, Ben, actually. Had 7 strikeouts in 6 innings, pitched very well. But you look at his numbers going back to his time with the Pirates, all the way back to basically you take the entire season, but what I want to look at is since April 29th, he has had just 3 starts. So just 3 of his last 18 starts where he had less than 4 strikeouts. And all 3 of those times he had exactly 3 strikeouts. So I know new team facing a good Rockies team. They hit lefties very well. I'm not going to discount this Rockies offense. They can hit the ball. They can't pitch for anything, but they can hit the ball. At Coors Field, obviously the ball's going to be flying. But at the same time, he's a very good strikeout pitcher. Colorado's like middle of the pack in terms of strikeouts per game. They're just under 8 a game this season. So I think if Quintana, if he can get you 5-6 innings, you're probably going to see him strike out 4, 5, 6 guys. The last time he missed this prop was back against these same Rockies on July 15th. He only pitched 5 innings in that game, gave up 6 runs, had 3 strikeouts. But since then, he's easily clear this 5 strikeouts, 6 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts. So I think this is a spot to take Quintana. I know that the Rockies have had his number, I guess, this year because of that one outing, but at the same time, 3.5 is just way too low, especially at minus 110. I thought this would be juiced much higher.
Yeah, I think it's a really good line for Quintana. And what's been interesting about him this year is he's done a really good job of not giving up home runs, which has been an issue for him in the past. His home runs per 9 innings this year, Peter, 0.66. If you're looking at his numbers over the course of his career, as I'm loading them up right now, that number has been drastically higher over the last several years. Quintana, especially during his time in Chicago, was frequently giving up the home run ball. In fact, in 2021, it was the highest of his career, 1.71 home runs per 9. That's an enormous amount. So basically, to be able to cut that into a third of that so far in 2022, he's kept the ball down, done a really good job of it. Now, odds makers don't think that's going to be the case tonight. The total in this game, 12.5 runs. So, and actually, my daily dinger pick is on the Colorado Rockies and Ryan McMahon. But as needless to say, he's still going to be able to punch some guys out, especially with his ability to mix speeds, change pitches. So I think he's going to be just fine. That's not a particularly high number for Quintana to reach, and he should go relatively deep into this game.
Yeah, this is more about the number necessarily than the matchup. Obviously, Colorado, they do hit the ball very well, but at the same time, you're not going to get this at 3.5 at minus 110 for Quintana. Probably won't see it again the rest of the year. I think it's based on the fact that he struggled against this team the last time he pitched. I'm going to try and throw that small sample size out the window and look at his full body of work, and he's been very good striking guys out.
No doubt about it. As for an actual play on a game, sticking the NL Central a little bit. Pittsburgh Pirates are underdogs. Shocking, the Pirates being an underdog. They're on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks tonight. And I think they're live at plus 135 this evening to be able to get the job done. They have Mitch Keller on the mound, and nobody really knows a whole lot about him, maybe except in the Pittsburgh area, but this guy hasn't been able to buy any support. Over his last 5 starts, he's got an ERA of 1.74. He's gone just 1 and 2 in those outings, and he's averaged 6.1 innings pitched in those 5 starts. His ERA for the season is 4.21, but his expected ERA is about a half a run less than that. And factor in that Arizona's going up against Madison Bumgarner tonight, who has a 3.96 ERA, but his expected ERA, Peter, almost a run and a half higher than what we're seeing at 5.14. So I know that you might be saying to yourself, okay, why would you take a bad offense against a pitcher that has been lucky and consistently lucky throughout the course of the year? Doesn't that feel like a recipe for disaster? To a certain extent, yes, but I also like the better pitcher going up against a pitcher that is due to blow up anytime soon. And then I started looking a little closer at the numbers, and I came across this trend. The Pittsburgh Pirates, when they score 5 runs or more this year, have gone 29-8. We're a bad team, but when they get to that magic number of 5, they're 29-8. Bumgarner has allowed 5 runs in 3 of his last 4 starts. I think the trend might be starting to go in the right direction here for Pittsburgh. I think Keller is due just 1 win in those outstanding 5 starts. I think they can get another one tonight. The fact that I can get him at plus 135 with the better pitcher on the mound against Bumgarner, go ahead and sign me up for that one.
Yeah, you're doing one of my favorite pastimes in baseball. When 2 bad teams are playing against each other, just take the underdog. I think it's sometimes like it's not a foolproof plan, but I think a lot of times, especially when you like the pitching matchup, obviously you like Keller better than Bumgarner here. So like I think that's part of it. It's like if you like the pitching matchup better, both these teams are not good. Why not get some value on this? Because you're going to be frustrated with yourself if you take the Diamondbacks just because, and then they lose. And it was, they're minus 170 tonight. Like it's just not worth laying that number with a bad team. So I don't mind that play at all.
Yeah, it's all about finding sort of the right opportunity to jump on board with Keller. I did it a couple starts ago, and he pitched great again, but Pittsburgh couldn't score. I think the matchup sets up a little bit better for them this time around, knowing that Bumgarner has really struggled as of late. And if they can hit that number, that the results are likely going to work out in their favor.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go into my last best bet. We got, I mentioned this at the top of the show. I was going to talk some Rangers Astros. So we are going to do that. I love the Cy Young winners, or Cy Young favorites, I should say. They're not winners yet. Cy Young favorites today. I'm taking the Astros -1.5 against the Rangers today. Um, this one I think is going to be, an easy win for the Astros. Glenn Otto, shouts to Glenn Otto because he's a former Yankees prospect. Just simply has not been good this year. His numbers at home are terrible. That he's on the road today, but the Rangers are 5-11 in his 16 starts. They've lost 8 straight starts for him, and over that stretch, he has a 6.45 ERA. That's just not going to get it done against Justin Verlander tonight. You look at what Verlander's done over his last 7 starts. The Astros are 7-0. He has pitched 47 2/3 innings and has a .76 ERA over that stretch. Just absolute dominance from Justin Verlander. And on top of that, the Astros 16-4 in Verlander's 20 starts this season. If you're playing a parlay, I don't mind the Astros on the money line just as a safer pick if you're going to parlay it with something else. But honestly, I think their run line, even at -140, this is about as good as you were going to get in this pitching matchup. The Astros offense isn't the greatest this year, but it's good enough to get it done against Glenn Otto. And I just don't see the Rangers really putting up a fight against Verlander. Basically, nobody in baseball has over the past month and a half. So anytime you can back this guy, I think you have to. It's the kind of my thing is when I'm betting on baseball, I love to back starting pitchers that, I trust, the guys that have been pitching well. I think that there's only so much you can do because you can only handicap a bullpen so much.
Right.
Like you can look at their bullpen ERA, but if some guy comes in, he doesn't have it that day, like there's only so much you can do. So I love Verlander here. I think he goes pretty deep into this one, and the Astros pull this out pretty easily.
It's hard to disagree with that, especially with how Verlander has gone deep into games. He's been consistent. In the Rangers offense, which was supposed to be really set up this year, like the pitching was eventually going to come, and this was going to be the year that the Rangers offense really started to break out with some of the signings, Seager and Simeon. It hasn't really worked out. They've been very mediocre. And you're right with Verlander and the consistent level that he's been able to go deep into games, and the Astros have been able to separate themselves. They've also been a really good under team because of how good their pitching has been, and that the offense is going to break through. So taking them on the run line, they've been one of the better run line teams all year. Hard to disagree with that.
Yeah. We got a question in the chat. Do you like the under 9 in the Red Sox Braves game? Ben, do you want to take this one? I know you wrote the preview for it today.
I did. I actually like the Red Sox as a money line underdog at home. Kyle Wright has not had good numbers on the road, and this is somebody that's had a ton of run support throughout the course of the year, but his ERA really balloons away from Truist Park. So I just don't know if Pivetta is going to be the guy that slows down the Braves offense right now. Like Pivetta had that stretch where he looked like he was one of the better pitchers in baseball after a terrible start to the season. He's now starting to pitch again like he's in a rut. So I don't mind the under. I think I still lean towards the Red Sox money line, but I just don't think I'd go on the under only because I'm not sure what Kyle Wright we're going to see tonight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the thing that concerns me with taking an under in a Red Sox game is there's 2 things. One, defensively, they've been really bad this year. I know they kind of shored that up at the deadline with Eric Hosmer now playing first base instead of Franchi Cordero. But at the same time, their bullpen also has a 4.41 ERA this year. So even if Pivetta and Wright pitch well, like you have no idea what the Red Sox are going to give you. They have a lot of guys back there. They traded away Jake Diekman at the deadline. Like they have a lot of guys back there that some nights, if they don't have it, it could absolutely kill a bet. With how explosive the Braves offense is, I would stay away from the under. I don't really have a play in this one, to be honest, but the starting pitching matchup, like on paper, it seems like, oh yeah, this should be an under. But like you said, Kyle Wright not good on the road. I don't trust the Red Sox bullpen, so I'd probably stay away. I don't know if I'd bet the over, but I don't love the under necessarily tonight.
One thing that could theoretically work in the favor of the under tonight is looking at the BetSided weather report for today. Going to be a gorgeous night in Boston. 69 degrees, wind blowing in from right center field at 6 miles per hour. So not substantial, but it's not going to help, one of those typical Fenway Park home runs that just clear the fence. If a fly ball hangs in the air, it's probably going to push it in the other direction. I don't know if I love 9, but I do think I understand the play if you think both pitchers are going to start to show up tonight.
Yeah. I see the thinking. I just personally, Boston just, man, they do. I do not trust them defensively at all. Let's pull up our recap graphic for all of our best bets next. We had some
appreciate the
good ones
question too, but from Don.
Yeah, of course. Love the questions. So today I'm going with Sandy Alcantara under 2.5 earned runs allowed, Jose Quintana over 3.5 strikeouts against the Rockies, and the Astros -1.5 against the Texas Rangers. Ben took the over 5.5 Ks for Jeffrey Springs, which is already cashed. The Pirates +135 as underdogs against the Diamondbacks, and then the Liberty +5.5 against the Wings. That line's moved down to 4, but he bet that earlier today at +5.5. So
yeah,
I like that card.
Jumping the gun too, a little too early today.
We already got one win, Ben, on
it's
that
true.
card.
That might be the first time in BetSlip history that we already had a win cash out before the show ended.
I'll take it for sure. But let's jump into our segment because this is probably the thing I've been most excited for about today's show. We got our buy or sell second-year quarterbacks. So obviously there's 6 second-year quarterbacks this year. We got Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and Davis Mills. So huge quarterback class. Honestly, has the potential to be one of the greatest quarterback classes of all time. Also could be one of the worst if none of these guys pan out. So that's kind of the where you have to look at these two things. It's like, yeah, they got a lot of talent, but so we got picks. We got our buy guys, our sell guys, and then our hold guys. Ben, if you want to start us off with who you're buying in 2022.
Yeah, I'm buying the #1 overall pick in the draft that unfortunately had the displeasure of having to play for Urban Meyer in his first season, and that's Trevor Lawrence. The conversation around Lawrence, and I know that all these different names were thrown around that maybe he wouldn't be the first pick, or there's possible concerns about his love and interest of football. It's garbage. This was somebody that was mentioned in that same type of breath as Andrew Luck when he was first drafted as a can't miss quarterback prospect. And now that Doug Peterson is there, it's a breath of fresh air. There's plenty of weapons in this Jacksonville offense. They did spend a lot of money on Christian Kirk. Travis Etienne is going to be a nice factor in the backfield, nice little safety blanket to drop the ball off for Lawrence. And now that he's going to be playing in a real ass offense in his second year in the league, we've seen guys take that massive jump. We saw it with Patrick Mahomes. We saw it with Lamar Jackson. This isn't me putting Trevor Lawrence in that category, considering he only threw for 12 touchdowns last year. But real coaching in the NFL at the most important position matters. And I think you're going to see the Trevor Lawrence that most of us expected to see, especially with Doug Peterson's creativity to get him to move out of the pocket a little bit, to be able to use his athleticism to go downfield. I just think the offense is going to look so much more open this year because they have a real damn coach at the helm who's won a Super Bowl. Peterson has his flaws, but I think he understands the NFL offense and also understands creative play design that's going to put his quarterback in the best position to succeed. So I'm not going for an MVP bet or anything, but I do buy in on Trevor Lawrence looking more so like the franchise quarterback that everybody expected him to be with Doug Peterson as head coach in year 2.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I'll talk a little bit about Trevor Lawrence a little longer. I was debating him as my buy candidate because I do think that the tools are definitely there. You don't get compared to Peyton Manning coming out of a more mobile Peyton Manning coming into the draft if you don't have some insane tools. So
yeah,
I agree.
Keep in mind, Peyton Manning led the NFL in interceptions as a rookie, and then really turned it around starting in year 2, year 3. Again, this isn't us coming out and saying that Lawrence is going to be Peyton Manning, but it also indicates that having that first year of growth in the NFL for so many of these guys makes a noticeable difference.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The guy I'm taking is my buy guy, Ben. Is a little bit different because he did not play much as a rookie. I'm taking Trey Lance. I'm buying all the stock on Trey Lance. And the reason behind this, there's a couple reasons why, but the first one I want to talk about is just the optics. Obviously, they took Trey Lance with the 3rd pick in the draft. The San Francisco 49ers made the NFC Championship game last year. Jimmy Garoppolo is still under contract. If they really wanted to, They could run this thing back with Jimmy Garoppolo. They've gone to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game with him over the last 3 seasons. They could have done it. And Trey Lance, with him coming out really young, with him basically not playing the COVID season, he hadn't really played a lot of football. You could justify sitting him for 2 years and saying he needs to get more time in NFL offense. I think that is justifiable.
Right.
They chose 100% to not do that, which tells me either one, they think Trey Lance is ready to be the next big thing, or two, they're completely out on Jimmy Garoppolo. It can be a combination of the two things, but it's really hard for me to say they're completely out on a guy who took them to an NFC Championship game. Clearly, Trey Lance is just an extremely talented player, which is what he showed at North Dakota State. And in limited sample sizes last year, yes, the completion percentage was lower. There were some questionable throws. The guy also hadn't really played football in over a year. And the last time he had played football was at an FCS school. So he just got a whole year of working in an NFL offense for one of the best offensive minds in all of football, in Kyle Shanahan. And now you're telling me in his second season in the NFL, he's got Deebo Samuel now back. He's got one of the best tight ends in football in George Kittle. They have Brandon Ayuk, a former first-round pick. And their running game last year, Elijah Mitchell really burst on the scene as a late draft pick where it was like, okay, this guy can kind of carry a backfield. They also have Trey Sermon. They took another running back in this year's draft. This offense is built to succeed. They have a good offensive line. They have Trent Williams anchoring that offensive line.
Yeah.
The thing I think for Trey Lance and is going to separate him is his legs. And Shanahan used him last year in like some of these, wildcat packages near the goal line. I think that is going to be such a big difference for this 49ers offense, because you look at Kyle Shanahan traditional offenses, the quarterbacks he's had when he was in Washington, when he was the OC, it was Kirk Cousins. Then he has Jimmy Garoppolo, where it's just these not really mobile, drop back, make the right read, throw the ball quarterbacks, very low ceiling, high floor. Trey Lance is the complete opposite. He has the highest possible ceiling you could find, but the floor, if his completion percentage stay low, is much lower than some of those other guys.
Right.
The thing I think is Shanahan's going to put him in a position to succeed. That's what he does with all the players on his field. You look, that 49ers team last year should not have been in the NFC Championship game. They had no business being there, but they got there because they are very, very well coached. You're going to tell me one of the best offensive minds gets a quarterback with all of the physical tools? I'm buying all the Trey Lance stock. I think he's going to have the weapons to make him look good. And then I also think his legs are just a completely new dynamic. One of the best bets I wrote up, and you can check our 32 NFL best bets, one for every team, over at BetSided. I took Trey Lance over 5.5 rushing touchdowns. You look at some of the past quarterback seasons, like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, a lot of these mobile quarterbacks, they're pushing double-digit rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think Trey Lance has that kind of potential in this offense, especially an offense that is such a good running offense where they can play a ton of that read option stuff, and it's going to be really hard to tell who you're going to commit to. So give me all the Trey Lance stock on a good football team this year.
Yeah, I love the call. I think if I had to choose between him or Lawrence as far as who I felt better about this year, I just have seen a larger sample with Lawrence, and I also know going from where he was to where he should be is likely to happen versus in an offense like Shanahan, where I think that Lance probably has the highest ceiling. There's just not much of a sample to go off of. But do I think he's in a position to succeed? Absolutely. And I think one other quick point before we move on to our sell candidates, I don't know if it's necessarily that they're done with Jimmy, but I think they also they saw what he was able to do at his maximum, which is get him to a couple of NFC Championship games and then lose the Super Bowl. Versus Lance, even if you're not going to be that good this year, if this is the year you give him an opportunity to really start to figure things out, then you're at least playing to that higher ceiling of winning a title based on the skill set that he has versus let's just hope that everything else works in our favor. If Trey Lance puts together the type of season that they believe he's capable of, he can carry a team to a Super Bowl as opposed to Garoppolo being good enough to get you there. That's where I think the major difference is. And I think you have to go with upside, knowing where you've been, at least with this team. So those are our buy candidates and some intriguing names there. I'm going to tell you that the guy that I'm selling on is probably the player that most people consider to be one of the safer picks in the draft, and that's Mac Jones. He had a good year last year. Josh McDaniels at the helm, obviously a long time working with Tom Brady, and he kind of just stepped in and was very reliable. Had some struggles in the second half of the season. Didn't look good in the playoffs, obviously, but There's something going on in New England right now. It's a combination of two bad head coaches and Matt Patricia and Joe Judge trying to run the offensive show. There's been multiple reports coming out of New England that there's just been what they've called no chance plays coming from the quarterback position, which you always hope that your quarterback gives you some sort of a chance, that there's some sort of a check down. Doesn't appear to be the case. I'm not taking Mac Jones' talent and saying this is not somebody that I think could be a solid NFL quarterback. But New England has always played to the strength of the team around the quarterback, and then obviously Brady took it to a whole nother level. What worked for Jones last year is that the system worked for him, and now that entire system is gone, and you're relying on guys that have never been offensive coordinators before to set him up for success. I got to tell you, man, like the Patriots this year, after thinking that they might be a fairly competitive team, I'm probably selling on the entire New England Patriots right now, in addition to Mac Jones. I have some serious concerns about what this offense is going to look like. So I'm selling on him.
I don't mind that play at all. I don't think you could ever tell me to sell a Bill Belichick team just because I'm so scarred from living in New England and Bill Belichick's teams always winning and not being a Patriots fan. So I will not slander that man's name. But at the same time, I agree with you on the Mac Jones front. I just think Mac Jones last year he played like perfect game manager football. I just don't know what is different about this roster. And obviously, like you said, with the difference in the offensive system, where like he's going to be able to play above game manager football. Like I think even if you're high on Mac Jones, like you're hoping he can basically replicate last season and you can sneak into the playoffs. That to me would make him a sell candidate at that point because you're not seeing that second year leap, which we've seen for so many quarterbacks recently between Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. Like all these guys, second year has been like wow, this guy's a star. I just don't see that in Mac Jones either.
Yeah, absolutely.
My sell candidate, you're not going to like this one. And I personally don't like this one. I don't like that I had to go here, but I had to go here. I'm selling on Justin Fields. And this is not a sell on Justin Fields for all time. This is a sell on Justin Fields for 2022 because the system and the team around him is terrible. I like Darnell Mooney.
I disagree with that.
I like Darnell Mooney. Outside of that, every single other offensive like receiving weapon, just extreme question marks for the Bears. Sure, they have David Montgomery. Their offensive line have question marks there as well. They lost James Daniels this offseason. Tevin Jenkins, their second-round pick in 2021, was banged up all year. To me, I feel like
he might just be a bona fide scrub. I'm not sure if Tevin Jenkins can play.
There's that too. But to me, they're putting Justin Fields in a position to fail. Like, I don't think this has anything to do with Justin Fields other than he came in last year to a situation where he was destined to fail because they played Andy Dalton over him. They put him in the lineup. They took him out of the lineup. He was getting hurt because he was getting rocked because the offensive line stuff. Destined to fail on a lame duck head coach and a lame duck GM. Then you bring him back this year with a first-year head coach, and they surround him with nothing. And so I don't think Justin Fields, I think down the line, he can be a very good quarterback in this league. I still believe in his talent. I thought he should have been the second quarterback off the board in that draft. But at the same time, I can't justify him having a good year when he has absolutely nothing around him. And we saw what happened when he had absolutely nothing around him last year. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the talent overcomes it. But at the same time, this Bears team is just not that great. So even if he plays well, I don't think they're winning football games. So, yeah, I know you're not going to love that one, Ben, but for 2022, I'm out on Justin Fields.
It's a perfectly rational take. And I'll just tell you kind of what I've heard from, those that I know in Chicago that have been covering this team, and also from Justin Fields himself. There is a different level of respect that he has for this new regime, and in particular with Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator that they brought in from the Green Bay Packers. Like every indication with Fields is that he knows that they're not really evaluating him exclusively off of this year. They understand that there's a longer term play in hand. And the Bears are going to have the most amount of cap space coming into the league next year. They know that they're going to start to spend. I don't think that they're necessarily putting him in a position to fail long term, although this year will be a growing pains type year. But I just expect the coaching to be just demonstratively better because Nagy was trying to put a round peg in a square hole because the way he saw the Chiefs offense was the only way he could see the Chiefs offense, and the Bears just didn't have the personnel to run it. Now they're designing an offense that's going to get the ball out quicker, that's going to allow Fields to use some of his mobility. He doesn't have to take these 7-step drops. It's much more suited to his strength. So even if the numbers and the talent around him isn't that good, I think they're doing him something serviceable by keeping him posted on what their plan is, how he'll be successful in the long term, because otherwise there's no reason for Fields to come out and say the glowing things that he's been saying about Luke Getsy and this new organization heading into year 2. What you're saying, Peter, makes a ton of sense. They're not going to be a good team this year. And I'm going to write about this a little bit later on in BetSided. It's going to come out later today about how odds makers were just flat out wrong about the Bears. They opened them at 7.5. We're now seeing them as low as 6 at several sports books for their win total this year. So he'll be fine, but I get selling him on the idea for 2022. That's fine.
Yeah, it's strictly a this year play. I think down the line, he can be a very good quarterback and they can have a very good team. I just think right now, you look at their roster just at face value. It's just like, how do you expect him to win with this roster? How do you expect him to consistently be successful with this roster? That's why I'm selling him this year.
I guess I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, because if I had to choose a candidate from this list to hold, it would be Justin Fields for those very reasons. I know that the rookie quarterback is the best deal going in the NFL. And if you're a franchise and you can get winning seasons and Super Bowl contention seasons with a quarterback on their rookie deal, you are set up for long-term success. And yeah, you're wasting one of those years in year 2, but the Bears, in particular, Ryan Poles, who came in from Kansas City, was so honest in his assessment of the team that they've cleared out so many players because he just didn't think the team was good, and he was right. And so now you're starting over from scratch. You're bringing in Matt Eberflus, who's going to try to change the culture and identity. He's going to be more of a CEO-type head coach. Let Luke Getsy run the offense. Alan Henderson, who we worked with for a long time in Indianapolis, is going to run the defense. And as far as Fields is concerned, like I said, there's going to be a growth period where they know that he's not working with a Super Bowl level talent. And so I think they're going to let him adjust, let him figure out the offense, let him and Luke Getsy really start to connect. And then next year, that's when they're going to have these 3 years, if you include the 5th-year option, to truly evaluate him. So yeah, 2022 may not be a good year for Justin Fields, but I do expect him to look much more competent compared to his first year with Matt Nagy, where it just was not a good fit from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think those are all fair points. Like I said, I think post 2022, he can really be a solid quarterback. As for my hold, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence in the hold spot. I debated him in the buy spot, didn't want to have us with the same buy, but I don't think I ever sold any of my Trevor Lawrence stock. Like, I don't know why you would. It was last year was a joke. I mean, it was Urban Meyer. The Jags are an unserious organization, but they were super unserious last year. Like, I mean, that was Shad Khan, and they didn't even care last year. The fact that Urban Meyer was the head coach is absolutely laughable. So Doug Peterson, yeah, he has his flaws. He's going to be so much better for Trevor Lawrence's development. We saw Doug Peterson get the best out of Carson Wentz, who has tanked ever since leaving Doug Peterson. We saw him get the best out of Nick Foles and win a Super Bowl. So I think he's going to get close to the best out of Trevor Lawrence. And like you mentioned, I will give the Jags credit. They tried to surround him with better weapons. They signed Christian Kirk. Travis Etienne will be back this year. James Robinson looks like he's going to play after tearing his Achilles last year, which is absolutely bonkers to me. They're going to be a better team just all around. And I think the one thing that you can take of last year for Trevor Lawrence is he got the bumps and the bruises and took his lumps in his first year in the NFL. I think that's actually in the long run going to make him better. That's the one thing that concerns me about my buy candidate in Trey Lance is he hasn't really had that opportunity yet. So obviously, there's going to be growing pains with these guys. Trevor Lawrence got all the growing pains last year. He got the growing pains of the bad coaching staff. He got the growing pains of the bad supporting cast. So I don't think I would sell Trevor Lawrence stock for his entire rookie contract, including the 5th-year option, just because maybe if he is able to leave the Jags or ends up leaving the Jags, things get better. But I just think he has too much upside. He was too highly touted to ever think that he's not going to be that guy. So I'm holding on to Trevor Lawrence stock. I hope it's an immediate change in 2022, but I think down the line, he's still going to be one of the better quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah, I mean, he's my buy candidate. So not much more for me to add there. I still think he has the ability to be a stud. And again, it's about learning an offense and having the weapons around you to be successful. Art Donovan Smooth thinks Jacksonville could be a team that actually bypasses the Indianapolis Colts as a sneaky team to win the AFC South division. I don't know if I'm ready to go there just yet, but I do expect them to be a much more improved team, at least from a season ago, because they were downright terrible last year, and I think it's going to look a lot better and a lot more smooth.
Definitely. Could not agree more. That's our buy and sell segment. That was a real fun one, Ben. But let's jump into game of the night, because this is what we're all here for. We got Twins Dodgers tonight. Sonny Gray on the mound for the Twins, and Ryan, I'm going to butcher this last name. I think it's Pepua on the mound for the Dodgers. I'm not really sure how to say that last one. I should have looked up a pronunciation.
You're telling me it's not Pepiat?
It might be that. It could be that. But
somebody watching the broadcast will die. So
that's what I need. I need somebody to correct my pronunciation.
Okay, are you going with like the Louisiana Cajun, like Terrio and Fontenelle, like Pepiat or Pepier, or
that's what I was originally thinking, but I'm not sure. Either way,
Pepio. Let's go with Ryan Pepio. And
all right,
we'll make it a silent T until somebody tells us otherwise.
This is going to be his 5th major league start. He's basically acted like an opener to start his career. So Dodgers right now, -1.5 plus money, which is very rare. Obviously heavy favorites on the money line. Ben, where are you leaning in this game?
Yeah, so if we're going to go with Pepio as the sort of agreed upon pronunciation, the numbers are pretty good. Nice high strikeout per 9 of 10.47. ERA looks good at 2.76, although his expected ERA is actually about a run higher. But Sonny Gray has also had a very solid year. Like, again, talking about a guy that's in Minnesota with a 3.19 ERA, done a really good job of keeping the ball in the ballpark, averaging less than 1 home run per 9 innings. To me, I think the play is on the first 5 and trusting these starters to get the job done against 2 offenses that, especially on the Twin side, have been a little bit hit or miss. And you know that the Dodgers, especially when they start to see more guys through the lineup, get about as hot as anybody. I mean, they're 27-3, Peter, in their last 30 games. So we were waiting for the Dodgers to really start to take off in the early portion of the year. They've done it, and done it even more so over these last 30 games. So I think the first 5 runs, that feels like a reasonable number for 2 really good pitchers on the bump. It's -120, so you're having to pay a little bit of juice, but I think it's a safe play, especially if you trust both starters to go relatively deep, and you can kind of get out of the action before both of these starters start to get seen a third time through the lineup.
Yeah, and I think, too, Dodgers' 4th best bullpen ERA. I believe the Twins are 11th or 12th. Yeah. So even if you do see the Dodgers go to the pen earlier, which they might, not a big concern for me there. I don't mind that play at all. I'm on the Dodgers run line. And one of the last times on the show, I took Dodgers and Astros in the same night, and I'm pretty sure they both lost. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen again here. But I got to roll with the Dodgers. They're the 2nd best team in the run line in all of baseball this year. And you look at their last 9 games, they've won 9 straight. They've won all 9 of them by 2 or more runs. Like, this is just an absolute wagon right now, this team. This game does matter a ton for the Twins because they are now tied with the Guardians in first place in the AL Central, so they really don't want to fall behind there. But at the same time, this Dodgers team is just, their offense is way too good right now. I think Sonny Gray is going to be fine in this start, but you look at his last 3 starts, he's only pitched 16 innings. So then you're going to rely on multiple pitchers in the bullpen against this Dodgers team. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, it's really hard to handicap these bullpens when you're relying on like 3, 4, 5 guys to get it done. I just like the Dodgers here. I don't think I'd stop betting on the Dodgers while they're on this streak until they lose. It just seems like the way you got to go.
Yeah, they've been so good and so dominant on the run line all season long. I have a feeling that's likely going to be the play that the game of the night crew is going to go with. And yes, by the way, we did get some confirmation here, Peter. Ryan Pepio is the play. So I don't even remember what I thought we were going with, but I think that is like the French pronunciation. I think it's also like the French Cajun way too. Pepio.
Hope he pitches well tonight. Pepio pitches well. That's what we need. But let's do what do we jump to on our poll? I believe it is the Dodgers as well.
Dodgers on the run line. Yeah. One of the few times we threw up a run line poll. Thinking that it might be a little bit closer, but no, it is the Dodgers -1.5, the overwhelming choice by the betting viewers today.
Don't let me down, community. Don't let me down today. We're all riding on this one. Ben's going to be riding with us on this one. surely nothing can go wrong. That's just the way this goes. But yeah, appreciate you guys sticking with us today. Really fun show. Probably one of the most fun shows we've had to lead up to football season. That got me pumped up for the NFL season. So appreciate you guys hanging in with us. If you like what you're seeing, like, subscribe down below. We're back tomorrow with another Daily Bet Slip. It's going to be myself again with our guy Donovan Smoot. Sure, we'll have some WNBA action for you tomorrow. For myself, for Ben, appreciate you guys. Good luck with all your bets tonight.